Welcome back, Marngrookers. Now is with us right now is one of the stars of the Carlton Football Club. He's a legend, Sid Jackson. Sid, and I don't say that lightly because many people are legends and stars these days and champions, but you were one of those pioneering Indigenous players that played in an era when there's hardly an Aboriginal playing. And I'm just wondering, before we're talking to Auntie Pam about the treatment that Sir Doug Nicholls got, and they wrote the wrong, or they corrected the wrong the other day. What was it like when you went to Carlton, you know, maybe 1 or 2 decades later? How was you treated at Carlton?
Look, Carlton's a very, very professional club, and they treated me as such, and I had no trouble at Carlton at all fitting in, and they had a very, very good committee. They made me welcome when I first came there, and I remember coming over on the old plane in those days. They call it the old TAA, whatever it was, and took about 3 days to get here, and I had to stay around all day till they sorted out some accommodation for me, and by the time I got to bed, I've lost a day and a half, and I was pretty buggered at that stage. So
I gather that you really have a great love for the Carlton Football Club because you come over, you watch a lot of their games, you follow them with a deep interest, and I often thought that you must hold the club in high esteem. And you're such a great player, Sid, at Carlton. You play with some great players. You played against this great man sitting on the panel at the end. You've had quite a few duels with him over the years.
Yeah. Well, I could never catch Kevin anyway. he was pretty fast, and he could run all day that way. He never, you know, he was one of those stars for Richmond, but I enjoyed...
Did you get a chance to clock him at all? Because you could throw a few in those days.
Sid and I were teammates. We played in Bucharest, Romania. We were on the same side. We're about the only two players on the planet who played in Bucharest, Romania in 1968. Sid and I played.
Is that a true story?
I almost forgotten about that.
Where is it? I've never heard of it.
It's in Romania. It's the capital of Romania.
On the other side of the world there somewhere, but then we went to Ireland and England and...
with the Glass in 1968. And at half-time of our games playing Gaelic football, Sid would come out and throw boomerangs. And the crowd absolutely loved it. Yep. They couldn't believe they came back.
I carted these two bent sticks with me right throughout the trip, and I remember walking out in the middle of the ground and they all giving all the Irish and everybody giving you a big clap, and I said, this thing comes back. So I threw it out over the top of their heads, and they're all in the stand, they're all ducked. And this thing came back and floated around. I went out and caught it, and I think about 6 of those Irish blokes ran out and they started fighting over this bent stick.
Yeah, look, you're an absolute legend. We love you, Sid. You know that. Now, we know where you come from. We know how you got to where you are. A lot of this young generation, these young kids here, they wouldn't know. Explain to these kids you come from Perth. More importantly, what country town?
If you want to go right back, I'm a desert man. You know where Leonora is? At the back of Laverton. I'm a Wongai man. You know that one? I've got some people in the audience here. That's great.
Well, they're the young fellas from the Footy Means Business program.
Oh, great. So it took me about 3 or 4 days on the back of a truck with a lot of other kids, and stopped at various towns on the way down. And we got to Moore River Native Settlement, and from there we were sorted out with my 2 sisters, and one went to Carolop Mission, one went to Wandering, and I went to the Rollins Native Mission, which was further down south, and that's how we were split up in those days, and just split families like that. So I never saw my sisters again until about 3 years ago, for the first time since that trip. So I had no affiliation with them or nothing, no interest. Nothing to talk about when I first saw them, which was a pretty sad situation for many families.
Yeah. So days like today must be very important to you. Sorry Day, where everybody gets together and we reflect on what happened during that time, and you know, there's people saying sorry and just thinking about you on days like this. So it's wonderful to have you here today with us. It's very special.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, families are very important. I had families of sorts with being in the Rollins Mission with a lot of other kids, and they became my family and sisters and brothers. So, and I still see a lot of those today, and it's called the Rollins Village Mission, which we look after today.
Yeah, you do a lot of work there.
A lot of work
this
there.
Day,
we do a lot of programs and healing programs. And
A lot of good is
dust healing,
coming
yeah.
out of it.
See,
Yeah.
my memory is that when you first came across to Victoria, you couldn't get a clearance. And in fact, you may have been the runner in the 1968 grand final.
You've got a good memory, Kevin, haven't you?
Oh yeah, he's lucky.
He knows how many handballs he done. which is not too many.
I was the premiership runner in 1968, but I was just about to cry like I am now.
How tough was that to come across as a star from Western Australia? Couldn't get a clearance. Here you are with the team every week and you can't play.
Well, in those days, though, Western Australia, all the players from Western Australia were coming over to play in the Eastern States, and 3 or 4 of us are already over here. And they brought in a poaching rule, and the Western Australia said you can't play over there, you've got to stand out otherwise, so that for a year, so they could entice us back to play for Western Australia. But we had to stand out. So Ron Brashy said, stop sobbing and carrying on. We'll give you something to do. You can be the runner for the group. You know. And I ended up the premiership runner in '68.
Fantastic. It's a great story.
I actually seen you play a lot when I was a young boy, and the thing that struck me about you is you're one of those very few Indigenous players that if you got hit behind the ear, you'd give one back. You know, you never copped anything, regardless of how big or how small they were. But besides that, your skills are absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, well, I think that started from the early days. We had one football at the mission there, and there was 30 kids. So if you couldn't get a kick there, you had to fight over and get a kick there. So I think that's built up our skills, you know.
This is true.
Sid, how did you educate your teammates or your coaches in the footy world, I guess, regarding some of the challenges that they're not aware of that you would have faced as an Indigenous player?
Oh, I just tell them my journey, where I came from. There's something that you love and you got passionate about, that you chase it with all your heart and soul. And I did that with football. And I said, well, you do that with whatever your interests are, and even if it's work or study, or just go out and chase what you believe in.
Telling your story is so important for understanding.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, Uncle Sid, just want to quickly ask you, want to talk about the 2 premierships you played in. How special were they to you?
Well, I still hold a record. 1970 against Collingwood, we were 11 goals down at half time. We got up by 10 points. There was 121,669 people there.
Is that all?
121,669.
Goodness me, have a look at that.
The Prime Minister Menzies was standing in the crowd, smoking a cigar and having a pie and sauce. But I could say I'm still playing I played in the biggest crowd so far, and you just can't get that standing room anymore in any ground.